Hello, if you're just joining, we will get started in about 10 minutes. In the meantime, feel free to put any questions you've got into the chat box, and we'll get started at 7 o'clock London time, 11 o'clock Pacific time. I'm Joseph Liu. I'm a career change consultant, personal branding consultant, professional speaker, and also host of the Career Relaunch podcast. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I hosted a talk a couple days ago at Medium Day 2024, and this was an online webinar where I hosted a talk that was about personal branding. It was entitled From Invisible to Invaluable, the Art of Developing a Strong Personal Brand. I really enjoyed giving that talk during the day and heard a lot of really great speakers that day. What I'd like to do today is just do a quick follow-up because there were a lot of questions that came up at the end that I unfortunately was not able to get to. It was all related to personal branding. I thought people asked some really great questions. And so rather than leave everybody hanging, I thought I would just create this live event just to field through some of these questions and go through them one by one. These were asked in the Zoom chat, and I'm just going to go ahead and start. If you're watching this and if you have any questions, if you're tuning in live, feel free to type them in the chat box. If you're tuning in on YouTube, I can respond to them in written comments, although I'm going to probably do it verbally. LinkedIn, I can't do that. And if you're joining on Instagram, you're welcome to tune in. I'm probably going to be primarily focused on fielding the questions that come through the restream, but I will also check the live feed on Instagram. So you're going to see me looking back and forth a little bit here. I got quite a few questions the other day at the end of my talk that I was not able to address, but I thought I would go through them because I think they would be very useful for a lot of people to hear. And there were 9 that were asked, so I'm just going to go through them one by one. And again, if you're tuning in live, you are more than welcome to ask your question. But I'm just going to start from the top. So one of the first questions I got, and I won't give the person's full name, but I will mention their first name. So this was from a guy named David. And he asked me a question at the end about whether I had suggestions for exercises to clarify one's personal brand. So I have a couple thoughts on that. The very first thing that I would do is probably sit down and do a bit of a reflection exercise with yourself and just ask yourself, what is it that I want to be known for professionally in my career? I tend to focus primarily on professional topics when I'm talking about personal branding, but it could also apply to your personal life. So I would think very carefully about what sort of skill set that you want to be known for, the approach to your work that you want to be known for, how you want to label yourself in terms of your job title or any sort of professional certifications you have. And finally, if you think about your overall professional mission, the kind of legacy that you want to leave for other people, how you want to be remembered, that's another thing that you can think about. So I would first sit down and just do a bit of a reflection exercise with yourself and just think, hey, what is it that I want to be known for? Now, that's only going to take you so far. Another thing that you can do to clarify your personal brand is to ask people. Ask your coworkers, ask your colleagues, ask your even friends and family, what do you think I'm good at? What do you think I'm not so good at? When you think about how I treat people, when you think about how you feel when you work with me, what are some of the words that come to mind? And then you do a bit of a collection of all these different ideas, and then at that point you got to think, well, where do I want to focus my energies? What do I want to be known for? Of all these different things that people have said about me, of all the things that I could be to somebody, what do I feel is going to be the area that I want to focus on? So I always think the focus is really useful. And that's where I would also start. The final thing I would mention about this exercise to clarify your personal brand is to think a little bit, and this is just to get ruthlessly practical about this, what sort of audience are you trying to reach? What is the next target job or next target opportunity that you're going after? And which aspects of your personal brand do you feel are going to serve you well in reaching that goal? So those are some of the things I would think about, David. Again, if you're just joining us live, feel free to type in your question if you've got one, and I should be able to see them here on the restream that's going out to both YouTube and LinkedIn, and I'm also on Instagram Live right now. Next question from Eric. So he asked me if I have any different advice related to personal branding for those who are older. I'm 55 and I'm trying to gain some visibility. So the short answer to that, Eric, is no, there's not a major difference in the kind of advice that I would give to you. So one of the things I talked about at Medium was to try to take some marketing principles and apply them to your professional life. So how do you drive reach? How do you drive visibility for yourself? How do you reinforce your equity? And all those things still apply regardless of whether you're at the start of your career or if you're more senior, if you're mid-career, all those same principles would still apply. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I would do if I was an older individual. The only thing I would probably mention is, and I'm speculating here, but as you have worked longer in a particular sector, you're very likely to have a lot more seasoned experience in that sector. So I would lean into that, and I would err on the side of sharing your expertise with other people. I would put yourself out there. I would volunteer to speak at conferences, to contribute articles to publications, to comment on other people's publications, to perhaps even be a contributing writer or to submit an opinion piece. I think that sometimes when you're older, it can actually be easier at times, sometimes to convey your credibility. Sometimes when we're younger, it's always the grass is greener. When you're young, you want to be older and you want to have more professional experience. You can come across as more credible. When you're older, what I hear from my clients is, I wish I was a little bit younger because I wish I had some of the more current skills, or I knew some of the latest, greatest tools that people are using out there, or skill set. I would think about where you are in the chapter of your career, and there are different chapters in your career. Think about which chapter you're in, and think about what are some things that I could do right now in this particular chapter. So if you're junior, maybe it's about building up some experiences in the area that you want to be known for. If you're a little bit older, then maybe it's about giving back and about contributing and sharing. So that's how I would think about that, Eric. Next question was from Jenardan, and this person is asking me, what if you're interested in a variety of things when it comes to building your personal brand? And so there's nothing wrong with having different interests. I have a lot of different interests. Just the way I introduced myself on this particular feed, I said I was a career consultant. I talked about being a career focused on career change, personal branding. I do some writing. I do some speaking. I also do some podcasting. These days, it's actually totally fine to have a portfolio career. And in fact, it's a really nice way to diversify not only your skill set, but also to not put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to your career or when it comes to the business that you're running. So there's nothing wrong with it. At the same time, if you are interested in too many things, or if you are trying to convey too many things about yourself, or trying to communicate too many aspects of your personal brand all at once, just the risk there is just that you can sometimes come across as a bit dilute or maybe unfocused. So I would always err on the side of specificity and being selective about what you want to be and who you want to be and what you want to be known for. When you're more selective, when you're more specific, it makes it easier for people to understand where to place you in the sea of people who they're meeting out there. So I would err on the side of focus, but definitely don't short circuit some of the natural interests that you've got. One of the things that I'm interested in that has nothing to do with my work really, or I thought it had nothing to do with my work, is photography. And it's just something I like to do. So I think it's important to feed your interests, and it's important to feed that part of yourself that is naturally interested in things, maybe even outside of work. Okay, next up, question from this person didn't share their name, but they were just asking, for those of you just joining, if you're just joining live, I'm just going through some questions that I got at the end of my Medium presentation for Medium Day 2024 on Saturday, August the 17th. I'm just going through some of the follow-up questions that I got that I didn't have time to address on the day. This person asked me, I've got about 6 more here. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the comment box. Any good free exercise to discover our brand personality? So kind of similar to David's question earlier, good free exercises to discover our brand personality. I'd probably go back to asking people. So first of all, what is a brand personality? Well, if you think about a person, everybody's got a personality. They may be funny or introverted or extroverted, or they may be very social, or they might be very quiet. Everybody's serious or maybe more comical. Everybody's got a personality, and in branding, we talk about having a brand personality. If this brand was speaking, what would be their personality? And so if you're trying to figure out what your personality is, I would probably just start by asking people. So this goes back to the 360 feedback. I know it can feel a little bit weird to go out and ask somebody, hey, I'm trying to reassess my personal brand. Can you tell me a little bit about what you think about me? What are some words that come to mind? What are the first things that come to mind for you when you think about my personality? And if you ask 5 or 10 people this question, both in your personal and also your professional life, you're probably going to hear some themes pop up. And so some of those themes are going to be positive. Some of those themes might actually be somewhat negative. And your job there is to pick from that, I guess, database of approaches and personalities that you're known for, and think about, well, what do I want to be known for? What sort of personality would I like people to think I have when I'm working with them, when I'm engaging with them, when I'm interacting with them, when I'm delivering a product for them, if they're a client, the kind of service I'm providing for them. So that's where I would probably start with that. And the other thing that you can think about doing, this is going to get a little bit, this might seem a little kind of, I don't know how to put it, but very much in the AI space. But I've been starting to toy around with some of these AI tools. And so some of these that I use now, which are incredibly impressive, I actually think, is the one that I use that is called Perplexity. And you can actually go into one of these chat bots, whether it's ChatGPT or Cloud or Perplexity, or the one I just discovered the other day is called you.com, YOU.com, very similar to Perplexity. And you can just put in like some of your writing and see what sort of tone of voice comes through in your writing. And you can have it respond by saying, what sort of tone of voice is coming through in my writing? That's another way to get down to what sort of personality you've got. Next question. Again, those just joining us, I'm just going through some questions I got the other day from a webinar I hosted on personal branding at Medium Day. Sorry for those of you who keep hearing me say that, but I can see people coming in and out of the live event. Next question is from Emma, and she asked me, this relates to personal branding again, how much does color matter in your content? So Emma, I'm not sure what your profession is. I don't know if you're a designer or if you're somebody who's involved with color. I really don't know, but I'm not a color expert, but if you hear me typing, I'm actually pulling up a color emotion guide. There's different, short answer is yes, color does matter. And I'm assuming you're talking about color in terms of your branding, not like the color of your skin or thing. I'm just presuming that's what you mean by that. Does color matter in your marketing materials? Yes. Does it matter when you're putting together a cover letter or CV? Absolutely. Does it matter when you create a website? Definitely. So there's a lot of research into color psychology, and just to give some examples. So if you were to go to my website and if you look at my logo, the colors that I use are not random. They're very, very specific. There's actually 6 colors that I use as part of my brand color scheme. And I worked with a designer to pick those very specifically because I wanted them to convey certain personality about the work that I do. So you'll see that there's blue and also orange in my logo. And if you look at my branding materials, it has those colors very consistently. And so just to kind of go through a couple of these, and this is from, you can actually look this up online, these color emotion guides. And so, for example, orange signals friendliness, red signals excitement, boldness, purple is more creativity and wisdom, blue is around trust. That's why you see so many brands using blue, because they're conveying this trust element. So you'll see a lot of banks use blue, insurance companies will use blue, companies like Dell, HP, they use blue. Green is more like peacefulness. So if you think about Animal Planet, or if you think about BP, those are a lot more kind of the green space, and sometimes even grays. That can be more around balance and feeling calm. So if you think about Apple, even Nike uses that black logo or the gray shaded logo. Puma does that too. So yeah, those are just a few things to think about. But I would think very specifically about the kinds of colors you're using in any sort of materials you're sending out to people. And it does matter. It can also hurt you in some cases. So I also host some workshops on cover letter writing, and sometimes I'll get asked the question, should I use color? Should I mess with the layout? Should I try to use a more unique color scheme to have my cover letter pop out and stand out and be differentiated from all the other black and white cover letters that are very standard and traditionally formatted? And I would generally say don't do that, just because people react differently to color, especially with job search materials. I would just keep it to black and white. Next question. Again, if you got a question, feel free to put it into the chat box. Some of you are tuning in on YouTube, some on Instagram, some on LinkedIn. And so I should in theory be able to see those coming through here. If you are typing them and I'm not seeing them, then I'm sorry about that, but I should be able to see them coming through here. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going through these. Next question is from an anonymous person. How do you organize your day to create original expert content? So in the context of personal branding, so I do a lot of content creation. Well, not a lot. I don't do as much as a lot of other people do. I shouldn't even say that. I do like a bare minimum amount of content creation, but I do see content creation as a big part of the work that I do as a career consultant. I do some writing for publications, including Forbes and Fast Company. I write for Medium, not for Medium. I contribute articles to Medium also. I host a podcast where I create audio content that I really enjoy doing. And yeah, that's pretty much. Oh, I also create courses. I have some online courses. So that's another piece of content creation. And how I organize my day is I wish I had a clear answer for this. So I've been self-employed for about 10 years. And I suppose one of the things that I think many self-employed people struggle with, including me, is just structuring your day. Another thing I hear from a lot of business owners, including some clients, is your day just slips away and you end up, especially if you're working from home, you end up, I don't know, you're doing the laundry or you're doing chores, you're cooking, you're going for a walk. There's not anybody looking over your shoulder, so nobody's really holding you accountable. I would probably say I have prided myself over the past decade of being very disciplined with my days and to try to do a little bit every day, to not, well, sometimes I fall into the trap of doing too much in one day. But if you can figure out a regular cadence for yourself, and I don't know what that is for you, whoever asked this question, is it to put up a post on LinkedIn once a week, once a month, daily? I don't know what the cadence is for you. I think daily is a lot for somebody like me. Think about how often do I want to post? And then think about your overall work priorities. Now, for me, I feel like content's a really big part of the work that I do. It informs my presentations and my workshops, which is the vast majority of paid work that I do. And my workshops inform my content because I get to interact with a lot of people and I hear a lot of their challenges and struggles and questions. So the two, I think, work hand in hand. But in terms of my ultimate priority, if something's coming in from a client, that's my number one priority. If I have to get back to somebody related to a big workshop or talk I'm giving coming up, that trumps everything else I'm doing. So my content creation is important to me, but if anything has to slip, that is what tends to slip. At the same time, if you do want to create content out there, regularity is very important. So I would just commit to, I don't know, let's say once a month, and then just block it in your calendar. So actually, this was another talk I went to on Medium Day, was a guy who was, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he was talking, he's whoever the author is of Undistractable. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name right now, but he was talking about time blocking things in your calendar as a way of getting things done. And if you read books about getting things done and productivity, they do say that blocking things in your calendar is going to increase the chances of you actually doing it. So yeah, I would just carve off some time and schedule it in. If you want to prioritize something, that means scheduling it into your calendar. I got 3 more questions, and then if nobody else has any other questions, I'll wrap it up. But I've got one other question here from Felicia, and she says, how do you fix a negative brand? And there are actually a few other people who also asked that question. So different versions of this question would be, what happens if I'm trying to build my personal brand and my reputation is already tarnished, is already one that I don't really want to have, has become negative due to either something I did or maybe something out of my control, or maybe I made a mistake, I made one wrong move, I made one bad choice, and then that has really tainted my reputation. It does happen. Like there's a guy named Kevin Plank who's the CEO of Under Armour, and he said that you earn your reputation in drops, but you lose it in buckets. So yeah, it's very easy to have your reputation tarnished. And all I can say about this, Felicia, is the way you repair it is one small step at a time, day in and day out, reinforcing your desired positioning and the reputation that you would like to be known for. And it's not going to happen overnight. Just like if a brand becomes tarnished, they can't fix that overnight. But over time, you stick with it, you stay focused, you hone in on the area that you do want to be known for, and over time, hopefully, you can reverse that. So let's say, for example, you're known as somebody who's just, I don't know, you talk too much, for example. And all you got to do is over time try to, in every interaction that you have with people, maybe let somebody else speak first, or maybe do more listening than speaking. And in every single meeting you go to, you focus on doing that. And over time, that will become more of your reputation. But it does take time. Okay, 2 more questions here on personal branding. And so this one is from Lauri. And she's asking, how do I know that I've picked the right focus for my brand? Well, one way that you can, so let me just rephrase the question. So just in case that question isn't worded in a way that makes sense to other people. But normally when I get asked a question around, am I focused on the right things? It is either in the context of, just to give a couple examples here, hey, I'm trying to find my niche in my business. I'm a freelancer. I'm running my own business. I'm a solopreneur. Is my niche, is my branding, is it working for me? Have I picked the correct area to focus my services on? The other version I'll get from people a lot, because I work with a lot of business schools, is sometimes I'll hear from MBAs or executive MBAs, hey, I'm looking to change jobs, and I'm trying to figure out what would be the right way to position myself. So the easiest way to find out is to just see if you're gaining traction in the area that you want to gain traction in. So if you're applying to jobs and you're not getting any invitations for interviews, either your experience is off or the way you're communicating your experience is off. If you are trying to market your services as a small business owner and you're not getting any clients, again, either something's off with your service offering or the way that you're communicating that service offering. So I would pay attention to the market feedback you're getting from the client feedback you're getting, the hiring manager feedback you're getting or lack thereof, and use that as a clue. I host this podcast, and I remember interviewing somebody who she actually was the understudy playing Elphaba on Wicked, the Broadway musical. And one of the questions I asked her, and I asked this of a lot of artists and performing arts people, is how do you know when you're good at something? How can you tell when you're not just pretty decent at something, but you're actually professional material, whether it's singing or dancing or musical performance or whatever it might be? And she says you can kind of just feel it from people. And I know that's probably a bit of a fluffy answer to give, Lauri, but sometimes you can just kind of feel that you're on the right track. You're getting positive feedback from people. You're gaining traction. You can feel like you're building momentum. You can feel the progress. Sometimes when you do stuff, it's kind of like you just feel like there's a lot of work that's going into it with very little return. Or you feel like it's chirping crickets when you release something out into the world. Or you're just not getting the positive feedback that you want to get. It's not resonating with you. I actually had this happen early on in my business. One of the things I wanted to do was host these career relaunch events in central London. And I hosted my first one, and very quickly, it just felt off. Like the whole thing just felt off to me. There were maybe like 30 people who came, and I don't know. It just didn't quite feel. It just felt like it was a lot of work. I didn't feel like I really enjoyed it as much as I thought I would, and I just thought, there's plenty of other people out there who would be way better at this than I would be. And so I decided to let it go. So a couple questions to ask yourself, Lauri, if you're trying to figure out whether you've picked the right focus for yourself is, number one, am I gaining traction in the areas I want to gain traction in? Number two, do I feel like I am gaining momentum in the way that I want? And number three, just your intuition. Does this feel like I'm on the right track or not? Like, does this feel right? Or do I feel like I'm a bit off? And do all signals point to me being a bit off? Okay. Oh, hey, Tom. I see Tom has joined Instagram. Good to see you. I'm just actually finishing up And yeah, thank you very much, Tom. It's nice to see. We're way overdue for a catch up in London, by the way. I hope everything's going well with you at your firm. So Tom's one of the people who was on my podcast. Actually, came on as a guest and focuses on the area of wellness now. So check him out if you want to. So last question about personal branding, unless somebody else has a question. So I'm just going through the Q&A I got the other day that I wasn't able to get to. Can I have different areas of expertise? Should I narrow? This is maybe similar to the earlier question Jenardan asked, and this is from an anonymous attendee at Medium. You can have different areas of expertise. There's actually an argument to be had for the generalist out there. Generalists are really valuable. Generalists, I'm using the term generalist. Maybe you're not talking about that extreme. Maybe you're just talking about one or two areas of expertise. But just to go to the other extreme, you've got like really niched, focused experts. They're very narrow. And then you've got people who are very broad generalists. Those are the two extremes. And there's everything in between. So you can have different areas of expertise. The only issue is if you have too many areas of expertise, what can happen is that people can become a little bit confused about what you're offering. So just think about the way you shop for stuff. And this is just tapping back into all the parallels that you can see between branding and also personal branding. Imagine you're going out there and you're trying to look for a pair of running shoes. And you go to the store and you walk into the store. Where's the very first area you go to? You go to the running shoe section. If you're a hiker and you're looking for hiking shoes, you will go to the hiking section. Now, there's another section in the shoe store that has these, what would be equivalent to like generalist shoes. And they are typically called cross-training shoes. Now, these days, cross-training shoes are also referring to shoes people use in the gym when they're lifting weights. But generally, cross-training shoes are like the all-in-one shoe. And I don't know about you, I never quite know what to do with those shoes. And those shoes are not quite as appealing because they're not really good at any one thing. And what I've found in my career is that experts tend to be the ones who A, come to mind more often, and B, because of that, generally are thought of when relevant opportunities pop up. The people who are generalists, who are applying to a lot of different opportunities, who maybe aren't as focused either in what they're looking for and also how they communicate about themselves, they tend to fall through the cracks. Just to give a very specific example, recruiters tend to favor specialists. They tend to favor people who have a very specific focus that aligns with the jobs that their clients are offering out there because of the vacancies. And so while I do think it's okay to have different areas of expertise, it is useful to try to hone in on maybe 2 or 3 maximum, because it just is easier to position yourself that way. I just heard a story. What was this story? I don't remember I don't remember the name of the gym, but there's a gym called, well, I do remember the name of the brand, which is their Equinox Gym. Okay, so Equinox Gym, a very premium gym primarily in North America, United States, ultra premium gym, and actually started by a guy from the University of Michigan, which is where I did my MBA. They are also associated with SoulCycle. Again, tends to be very upmarket, tends to be a little bit more for higher income individuals. And then they released this other gym brand. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. If somebody knows, tell me in the chat. But they have kind of a lower tier down market brand, and that brand hasn't been doing so well. And I think they may have just filed for bankruptcy. I'm not, or they might be trying to sell it off. I think they might be trying to sell it at this point. These brands that try to straddle too many things can sometimes struggle. Gap is a really good example. So Gap that owns Old Navy, Gap, Banana Republic. Yeah, on the one hand, that tiered strategy can seem interesting, but then people don't quite know what to do with your brand, versus like a super premium brand out there, like Prada, for example, or I don't know, what's another premium brand out there? Something like Gucci or something. They've got a very specific target audience in mind. So again, it's much easier to know what to do with them. Okay. Does anybody have, those are all the questions that I had the other day that I wasn't able to get through. Does anybody have any final questions they want to ask me about personal branding? I can see we've got different people on the different, I'm primarily monitoring the LinkedIn and the Instagram feed, but the YouTube feed should also be coming through to me. Anybody have any final questions about personal branding? No? Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This is a little bit of a different activity that I normally do. I think this is actually the first time I've done a LinkedIn Live. So thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you found this useful. If you have any follow-up questions about personal branding, feel free to follow me here on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. Send me a question directly if you want to. And you can also check out my website if you want to, josephliu.co. And with that, I hope you guys have a good rest of the evening and best of luck with